When a woman who was previously warm and engaged suddenly turns cold, your natural survival instinct is to panic. You start scrolling through your mental archives, wondering where you messed up or if another guy has entered the picture. This panic usually leads to what most men consider the logical fix, doubling down. You send more texts, ask, "Are we okay?" 10 times a day, and try to force a level of closeness that was there just a week ago. But in the complex world of female psychology, this logical pursuit is actually the fastest way to end the relationship. The truth is often counterintuitive. She isn't pulling away because she's lost interest. She's creating space because her interest has become so intense that it's actually starting to terrify her. This behavior is rooted in a psychological state called emotional flooding. When a woman realizes she is truly falling for you, her internal security system goes on high alert. To her brain, the extreme vulnerability of love feels suspiciously similar to a physical threat. As her feelings deepen, she begins to feel a loss of emotional control, which triggers a fight or flight response. By pulling back, she is trying to regulate her own nervous system and regain her sense of self. She isn't rejecting you. She is protecting herself from the terrifying possibility of being rejected by someone who now has the power to break her heart. She is essentially building a temporary wall so she can catch her breath and decide if it's safe to let the wall down permanently. If you misread this signal and react by chasing or demanding an explanation, you accidentally confirm her worst fears. To an overwhelmed woman, your increased pressure feels like suffocation rather than affection. It signals to her that you don't have the emotional maturity to handle her complexity and that being with you means losing her independence. When you push for closeness while she is trying to find her footing, you turn yourself into a source of stress rather than a source of comfort. This is the moment where many potentially great relationships die. Not because the love wasn't there, but because the man tried to force a connection that simply needed room to breathe. Most men believe that the more a woman likes you, the more agreeable and pleasant she will become. While this is true in the early honeymoon stages, things shift dramatically once she starts to develop real, deep-seated feelings. You might notice she suddenly becomes difficult. She starts to tease you more aggressively, challenges your opinions on small things, or calls you out on your habits. To the average guy, this feels like a red flag. It looks like she's losing respect or becoming argumentative. However, 90% of men misinterpret this shift completely. In reality, this difficult behavior is actually the ultimate sign of emotional comfort. She has reached a level of intimacy where she no longer feels the need to perform the role of the perfect, polite date. This shift is a psychological phenomenon known as negative intimacy testing. Think about how she acts with a stranger or a casual acquaintance. She is likely polite, formal, and stays on her best behavior because she hasn't decided if that person is worth the risk of her true personality. When she starts acting meaner to you, through playful roasting or pushing your buttons, she is essentially dropping her social mask. She is inviting you into her real world, flaws and all, to see if you are strong enough to handle her unpolished self. She isn't trying to push you away. She is subconsciously testing the foundations of the relationship to see if you'll stick around when she isn't being perfect. When a woman is mean to you in this specific, challenging way, it's actually a massive compliment. It means she trusts you enough to stop pretending. She's moving past the superficial surface level and trying to establish a deeper, more authentic connection. If she's more willing to disagree with you than she is with anyone else in her life, it's because she feels safe enough in your presence to show her teeth. She's looking for a man who can hold his ground and handle her complexity without crumbling or getting offended. If you can recognize this for what it is, a bridge to deeper intimacy, you'll realize that her challenging you isn't a sign of her leaving, but a sign that she's finally letting you in. To navigate the confusion of a woman pulling back, you have to look past her surface-level silence and identify the psychological tells that reveal her true investment. The first major indicator is what we call the silent watcher. This happens when she stops initiating texts or calls, yet she is consistently the first person to view your social media stories or like an occasional post. This behavior is known as hovering. She is intentionally keeping a digital distance to protect her heart, but she is emotionally unable to look away. She is staying just far enough to feel safe from rejection, but close enough to ensure she doesn't lose track of what you're doing. If she truly didn't care, she wouldn't be paying this much attention to your daily life. She would simply disappear from your notifications entirely. The second sign is disproportional reactions. You might find that she gets unusually upset over something minor, like you taking a few hours to text back or having to reschedule a dinner. While most men dismiss this as unnecessary drama or craziness, it is actually a massive sign of emotional investment. High stakes emotions lead to high intensity reactions. If she were losing interest, your absence wouldn't bother her. It would actually be a relief. The fact that your small actions have the power to ruin her day or trigger a cold shoulder proves that you have significant power over her emotions. Her overreaction is just a masked way of saying she is terrified by how much she values your attention. Third, look out for the future retraction. This occurs when she accidentally lets a future plan slip, only to immediately pull it back. She might say, "We should go to that new museum this summer," but then instantly follow it up with a defensive comment like, "I mean, if we're even still talking by then, who knows?" This is a classic internal tug of war. One part of her brain is already dreaming about a future with you, but her fear-based survival instinct kicks in to build a wall of protection. She's essentially testing the waters by mentioning the future, then backtracking so she doesn't feel embarrassed if things don't work out. It's her heart's way of window shopping for a long-term commitment, while her mind tries to keep the closed sign on the door. Finally, there is the friend blackout. Paradoxically, when a woman is falling hard, she might tell her friends that you are just a guy or that it's nothing serious. This is a defense mechanism. Admitting to her inner circle that she's in love makes the situation real, and real means she can get hurt. However, you can spot the truth by watching how her friends act when you're around. If they are overly observant, whispering, or acting strange, it's because they know the truth she hasn't admitted to you yet. They are acting as her unofficial security team, checking to see if the guy she's secretly obsessed with is actually worth the risk. If she really wasn't interested, her friends would treat you with total indifference. If they're watching you like a hawk, you're already the main topic of their group chat. When you sense a woman pulling away, your natural urge is to fix the problem by providing more reassurance, more gifts, or more frequent check-ins. You think that if you just explain your feelings clearly enough or show enough devotion, she'll feel safe again. However, this is the biggest mistake you can make. When a woman is in a state of emotional overwhelm, your attempts to bridge the gap feel like suffocation rather than support. She is already struggling with a loss of internal control. When you lean in harder, you become another external pressure she has to manage. You cannot use logic to talk someone into feeling safe. Safety isn't a conversation. It's a result of your behavior over time. The only way to lower her guard is to prove through your actions that you are a consistent, grounded presence who doesn't panic when she needs to breathe. The secret to navigating this phase is a strategy called unpredictable positive reinforcement. This means that when she pulls back, you give her the exact space she is asking for, but you do so without resentment or punishing her with silence. You remain a steady, successful version of yourself, focusing on your own life and goals while remaining open to her when she does reach out. By matching her pace instead of trying to accelerate it, you demonstrate high emotional intelligence. You are showing her that your happiness isn't dependent on her constant attention, which is incredibly attractive. When she sees that you don't crumble into neediness or lash out in frustration when she creates distance, her brain stops viewing you as a source of danger or pressure. Ultimately, your goal is to transition from being a threat to her independence to being a stable harbor for her emotions. A stable harbor is a place where a ship can go to escape the storm. It doesn't chase the ship out into the ocean. By remaining calm and maintaining your own boundaries, you show her that you are strong enough to handle her complexity without being broken by it. When she realizes that you aren't going to chase her, smother her, or demand that she fix her distance, she will naturally begin to gravitate back toward you. She needs to discover on her own that coming closer to you doesn't mean losing herself, and your non-reaction is the only thing that provides her the room to make that discovery. Real love rarely moves in a perfectly straight line. In fact, the deeper the potential connection, the more likely it is to involve a retreat. For a woman who is genuinely terrified by the depth of her feelings, her priority isn't a timeline for commitment. It is a timeline for safety. She is observing you closely to see if you are a seasonal man who only acts right when things are easy, or if you are a stable man who remains the same person regardless of the weather. She needs to know that the version of you she saw on Friday, when things were warm and fun, is the exact same version she'll encounter on Tuesday when she's feeling distant or moody. By refusing to panic and staying patient, you prove that you are emotionally resilient enough to handle the highs and lows of a real relationship without taking her internal struggle personally. This patience is your greatest weapon because it makes you the only man who truly sees her. While every other guy in her past might have lashed out, ghosted, or become desperately needy the moment she showed a bit of complexity, you remain a calm, immovable force. When she realizes that being vulnerable with you won't lead to her emotional destruction, the walls she built will naturally start to melt. She begins to understand that she doesn't have to choose between her feelings for you and her own sense of safety. You don't win this battle by chasing her down or forcing her to admit her feelings. You win by becoming the one person in her life she eventually realizes she no longer feels the need to hide from. As this trust solidifies, the entire dynamic of the relationship will shift. The distance that used to feel like a gap begins to shrink because she no longer feels the need to run away to find her balance. When she feels completely safe in your presence, the energy she used to spend on protecting herself gets redirected into loving you. This is the moment when the chase reverses. She stops retreating and starts moving toward you with the same intensity she once used to pull away. By giving her the room to fall on her own terms, you ensure that when she finally does land, she lands firmly in your corner, fully committed and no longer afraid.